The call came on a Tuesday morning, right as I was reviewing sustainability reports at my desk. Susan's name flashing across my phone screen felt like a cosmic joke. My successful big sister hadn't called me in over 2 years. I'm Peyton, the Russell sister who stayed behind in Millbrook while my siblings chased their big city dreams. The one they mockingly called small town whenever they deigned to visit during holidays. Now here was Susan, her voice tight with barely concealed desperation. "Peyton, we need your help with the Riverside project." I gripped my coffee mug tighter, memories flooding back of Susan's last visit. She'd stood in our family's hardware store, designer purse dangling from her arm, sneering at the solar panel display I'd just installed. "Still playing with Dad's little shop, I see," she'd said. "When are you going to do something meaningful with your life?" That little shop was now Russell Sustainable Development, the leading green construction firm in 3 counties. But Susan and Cora had been too busy with their glamorous real estate careers to notice. "The project's facing some challenges," Susan continued, pulling me back to the present. "We could use your expertise." I caught Maria's eye across the office. My business partner raised an eyebrow, already knowing who was on the phone. She'd held me together through countless family dinners, where my sisters had dismissed my work as cute and provincial. "What kind of challenges?" I kept my voice neutral, though my heart was racing. "Structural issues, sustainability requirements, the usual bureaucratic nonsense." Susan's laugh sounded forced. "Nothing we can't handle with the right assistance." I walked to the window watching workers install solar panels on the community centre we were renovating. "The same project you said was too small time for my involvement 6 months ago?" Silence crackled over the line. Then, "Things have changed." "They certainly have." I picked up the morning's newspaper from my desk, studying the headline again. "Riverside Development faces environmental scrutiny, financial concerns." Maria appeared at my elbow, sliding a note across my desk. "Perfect chance," she'd written, followed by a devious smile. "Look," Susan's voice dropped lower. "I know we've had our differences, but this is business. The project needs someone with your particular experience." I thought about Dad, about how proud he'd been when I took over the store, about how he'd believed in sustainable development long before it was trendy, about how my sisters had laughed when I invested our inheritance in green technology instead of selling out to developers. "When do you need me?" I asked. "There's a stakeholder meeting tomorrow at 2, downtown office, Riverside Plaza." She paused. "Cora will be there too." Of course she would. My middle sister always following Susan's lead, always ready with a cutting remark about my life choices. "I'll be there," I said, already formulating plans. "Send me the project files." "Peyton." Susan hesitated. "Thank you." I ended the call and turned to Maria, who was practically vibrating with excitement. "You're going to help them?" she asked, though her grin suggested she knew exactly what I was thinking. "Oh, I'm going to help all right." I pulled up the Riverside project details on my laptop. "Just not the way they're expecting." Maria perched on my desk, scanning the documents. "They really messed up, didn't they? These environmental impact reports are disastrous. And they're coming to their small-town sister to fix it." I couldn't help but smile. "Karma's a funny thing." My phone buzzed with a text from Cora. "Don't make us regret this." I showed it to Maria, who snorted. They already should. Looking at the project plans, I could see exactly where they'd gone wrong. They'd planned for profit over people, ignoring the community impact that had become my specialty. Their mistakes were my opportunity, not just for revenge, but for real change. "Book me a hotel," I told Maria, standing to pack my laptop. "I'm heading to the city." "Give them hell," she replied, already dialing. I paused at the door, taking in the view of Main Street. The hardware store sign still hung proud, now surrounded by solar panels and green roof gardens, my vision brought to life despite my sister's doubts. "Oh, and Maria," I turned back. "Call Camden at the City Council. Tell him I might have a solution to that affordable housing problem he's been worried about." She grinned. "Already on it, boss." Tomorrow I'd walk into that meeting room and face my sisters across a conference table. They'd expect their small-town sibling to be grateful for the opportunity, eager to please. They had no idea what was coming. I grabbed my keys, feeling lighter than I had in years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about proving them wrong in ways they never saw coming. The Riverside Plaza lobby gleamed with the kind of polished pretension I'd always associated with my sisters. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of steel and glass towers, while men and women in designer suits rushed past me, clutching coffee cups like lifelines. "Well, look who cleaned up nice," Cora's voice cut through the ambient noise. She stood by the elevator wearing what probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "Almost didn't recognize you without the work boots." I adjusted my blazer, the one Maria had insisted I pack. "Good to see you too, Cora. It's been, what, 2 years? 3. Susan's already upstairs. Fair warning, she's in quite a mood." The elevator ride was silent, thick with unspoken accusations. I watched our reflections in the mirrored walls, Cora fidgeting with her pearl necklace, me standing perfectly still. "You know," Cora finally said, "when Susan suggested calling you, I thought she'd lost her mind. And now? Now I think we're all about to find out if you're actually as smart as Dad always claimed." The elevator doors opened to reveal Susan pacing outside a conference room. She stopped mid-stride when she saw me. "Thank God," she muttered, pulling me into an awkward hug that felt more like a business transaction. "The stakeholders are getting restless." Inside the conference room, 8 people sat around a massive table. Susan quickly made introductions, but I was already focused on the architectural renderings spread across the surface. "As you can see," Susan was saying, "we've brought in additional expertise to address the sustainability concerns." "Concerns?" A man interrupted, his voice sharp. "The environmental impact report is a disaster. The community coalition is threatening legal action. And now you bring in..." He glanced at me dismissively. "Your sister?" "Titus," Susan warned, but I was already moving forward. "Actually," I pulled out my laptop, "I've reviewed the reports. You're right, they're concerning. But I see 3 immediate solutions." I connected to the projector, bringing up my preliminary designs. First, we retrofit the entire south-facing facade with integrated solar panels, reducing energy consumption by 47%. The room fell silent as I walked them through my proposals. Green roofs, grey water recycling, community gardens. With each slide, I could feel the energy shifting. "This," Titus leaned forward, frowning, "this would require a complete redesign." "Yes," I met his gaze steadily. "It would." "The costs," Susan started, "would be offset by federal green energy credits and increased property values." I pulled up the financial projections. "Plus, you'd avoid those pending lawsuits." A woman at the end of the table, the project's lead investor, nodded slowly. "She's right. The current design is a liability. We need time to consider alternatives," Titus insisted. "Time?" I laughed. "Your construction permits expire in 60 days. The community's organising protests. And your funding's contingent on meeting sustainability benchmarks you're nowhere close to achieving." Cora's hand clenched around her pen. "How do you know about the funding?" "Because unlike some people, I do my homework." I turned back to the investors. "I can have detailed plans ready in 2 weeks. Full community integration, LEED Platinum certification, and positive PR instead of protests." "And what's your stake in this?" Titus demanded. "Family," I said simply, watching Susan and Cora exchange worried glances. "Plus, I hate seeing good opportunities wasted on bad planning." The lead investor stood. 2 weeks. Show us the details and we'll discuss restructuring the development team." As the room cleared out, my sisters remained frozen in their seats. The moment the door closed, Susan exploded. "What the hell was that?" she hissed. "Restructuring the development team? That was me saving your project." I gathered my materials calmly. "Unless you'd prefer explaining to your investors why you ignored basic environmental regulations." "We didn't ignore," Cora began. "Really?" I pulled out my phone, reading from their own report. Groundwater contamination risks, insufficient renewable energy integration, zero community input. Want me to continue? Susan slumped in her chair. We needed this project to work. And now it will. I headed for the door. Just not quite the way you planned. Peyton. Cora's voice stopped me. Why are you really helping us? I thought about all the times they'd laughed at my choices, dismissed my work, abandoned our family's legacy for the allure of quick profits. Because that's what family does, I said, not turning around, and because sometimes the best lessons come from your own mistakes. Outside, I texted Maria. Phase 1 complete, call Camden. We're going to need that community support sooner than expected. Her reply came instantly. Already on it. Give them hell, boss. I smiled, watching the city traffic flow past. My sisters thought they were getting a simple bailout. Instead, they were about to learn exactly what their small-town sister was capable of. And this was just the beginning. The community centre buzzed with angry voices as I slipped in through the side door. Camden had warned me this meeting would be heated, but I hadn't expected such a crowd. They're trying to force us out. A woman at the podium slammed her hand down. First they buy up the properties, then they raise the rents until we can't afford to stay. Classic gentrification playbook. I found a seat near the back, watching my sisters squirm uncomfortably in their designer suits at the developer's table. They hadn't noticed me yet. The Riverside project promises new jobs, Susan was saying, her practiced smile failing to calm the crowd. Property value increases will benefit everyone. Benefit? A young woman stood up, her eyes blazing. My grandmother's lived in her apartment for 40 years. Your benefits would price her out of her own neighborhood. I recognized her from the project files. Kaya, the local activist who'd been rallying community opposition. She was good, hitting every point I'd suspected about my sister's real plans. Cora leaned forward to the microphone. We understand your concerns, but change is inevitable. So is karma, I called out, standing up. The room turned to face me. And sometimes it comes with blueprints. Susan's face went pale. Peyton, what are you— Show them the real numbers, I challenged, walking to the front. Show them the projected rent increases, the planned evictions, the renovation clauses in the fine print. Kaya's eyes narrowed. Who are you? I'm their sister. I pulled out my tablet, connecting it to the projector. And I have the documents they don't want you to see. The room erupted as I displayed the internal memos. Planned rent hikes of 300%, targeted harassment policies to force out long-term tenants, secret agreements with luxury retailers. This is confidential information, Titus shot up from his seat, face red. Funny thing about email chains, I said calmly. People really should check who's CC'd before discussing their predatory strategies. Susan grabbed my arm. What do you think you're doing? I pulled away, showing everyone exactly what kind of development you're planning. You'll destroy everything we've worked for, Cora hissed. No! I turned to the crowd. I'm offering an alternative. I switched slides to my revised plans. Imagine this instead. Affordable housing guaranteed for current residents. Solar power reducing utility costs. Community-owned businesses. A development that lifts everyone up instead of pushing people out. The room grew quiet as I walked them through the details. Green spaces, job training programs, profit sharing with local businesses. This is impossible, Titus scoffed. The numbers don't work. Actually, Camden stood up from the back right on cue. They do. The City Council has reviewed Ms. Russell's proposal. With available tax credits and federal grants for sustainable development, it's not only possible, it's more profitable long-term. I watched my sisters' faces as their carefully constructed plans crumbled. They'd never expected their small-town sister to outmaneuver them like this. After the meeting, Kaya caught up with me outside. Those plans? They're real? Very. I handed her my card. And I'd like your help making them happen. She studied me carefully. Why? They're your sisters. Exactly. I watched Susan and Cora hurrying to their car, avoiding eye contact. And sometimes family needs to learn the hard way what really matters. My phone buzzed. A message from Maria. Camden says the council's on board. Ready for phase 2? Before I could reply, Titus approached, his expensive suit failing to hide his anger. You have no idea what you've started. Actually, I do. I smiled, remembering all those times my sisters had dismissed my little sustainable projects. I'm finishing what they started, just not quite how they planned. We'll fight this, he threatened. Good luck. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Titus, you might want to check your own company's environmental compliance records before starting any fights. I did. The colour drained from his face as I walked away. Back at my hotel, I finally replied to Maria. Phase 2 is go. Time to show them what small-town values can really build. My phone lit up with missed calls from both sisters, but I ignored them. They'd always thought success meant pushing others down to climb up. Tomorrow they'd learn there was another way, whether they liked it or not. I pulled up the community proposal one more time, adding final touches to the plans that would transform not just the neighbourhood, but my sister's entire worldview. They'd wanted my help fixing their project. Instead, they were about to discover exactly what happens when you underestimate the sister you left behind. And I was just getting started. They're trying to buy off the council members, Camden said, sliding a folder across the coffee shop table. Titus has been making rounds, offering campaign contributions. I sipped my coffee, watching morning traffic crawl past the window. Of course he has. How many took the bait? 3. Maybe 4. He leaned back, exhausted. But we still have the majority. Barely. My phone buzzed with another call from Susan. Ignored. That made 17 since yesterday's community meeting. You know they won't give up easily, Maria chimed in from my laptop screen, joining us virtually from back home. Your sisters didn't get where they are by playing nice. Neither did I. I opened the folder, scanning the documents. Look at these campaign contributions. Titus isn't even trying to hide the paper trail. Camden grinned. That's where Kaya comes in. Right on cue, Kaya pushed through the cafe door, carrying a stack of papers that made my heart skip. Got them, she announced, dropping into the chair beside me. Every zoning violation, every ignored environmental regulation, every sketchy permit, fast track from the last 5 years. I spread the papers out, matching them against Camden's documents. Perfect. Maria, you seeing this? Crystal clear, she replied. And I've got something better. Remember that sustainability grant they claimed they couldn't get? Turns out they never even applied. They just told their investors it was denied. Because actually trying would have exposed their real plans, I finished. Camden, how fast can you get a council hearing? He checked his calendar. 3 days. But Titus will. Perfect. I pulled out my laptop, bringing up the project plans. That's all we need. Kaya, how's the community petition going? Over 2,000 signatures, she beamed. People are fired up. We're planning a demonstration before the hearing. My phone buzzed again. Cora this time. I silenced it without looking. Peyton, Maria's voice turned serious. Titus just called our office. He's offering to buy us out. Says he can triple your current contracts back home if you'll walk away. I laughed. Did he really think that would work? He also mentioned something about old permit violations at the hardware store. Sounded like a threat. The cafe suddenly felt colder. Dad's store, my store now, had been my life's work. But I'd been expecting this. Send him the photos, I told Maria. Which? Oh, she grinned. The ones from his waste disposal site? The illegal one? Those would be the ones. Camden whistled low. You really did your homework. Always do. I gathered the papers into neat piles. My sisters taught me that much, at least. Always know more than your opponents think you know. Speaking of your sisters, Kaya nodded toward the window. Susan and Cora were getting out of a taxi across the street. Right on schedule. I stood, straightening my jacket. Everyone know their parts? They nodded. Maria saluted from the screen before signing off. I watched my sisters scan the cafe, their faces tight with barely controlled anger. Peyton, Susan's voice could have frozen coffee. We need to talk. Actually, I gestured to the empty chairs. We all need to talk. Cora eyed Camden and Kaya suspiciously. This is family business. No, I corrected. This is community business. The kind you should have considered before trying to destroy people's homes. We're not destroying, Susan started. Save it. I pushed the violation reports toward them. You've got two choices. Either work with us to make this project actually benefit everyone, or watch it all fall apart at the council hearing. You wouldn't dare, Cora hissed. We're your sisters. Exactly. Which is why I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing. I met their eyes steadily. More than you gave this community. Susan flipped through the documents, her face growing paler. These would ruin us. Only if you force my hand. I softened my tone slightly. The sustainable plan works, Susan. Better profits, better press, better legacy. You just have to let go of the quick cash grab. And if we don't, Cora challenged. Camden slid his folder forward. Then these campaign contribution records become very public, along with everything else. The sisters exchanged looks, the same silent communication I remembered from childhood. Finally, Susan spoke. We need time to review the new proposals. You have until the hearing. I stood, gathering my things. 3 days. Choose wisely. Outside, Kaya touched my arm. They'll try something else. Count on it. I watched my sisters through the window, their heads bent over the documents. But for the first time in their lives, they're not holding all the cards. My phone buzzed with a text from Maria. Titus just called again. He's backing down on the permit threats. I smiled, remembering all the times my sisters had called me naive for believing in sustainable development, for staying in our hometown, for putting community before profit. Camden, I turned to him, make sure those hearing notices go out today. It's time everyone saw exactly what kind of development this city really needs, and exactly what kind of developer their small-town sister had become. The conference room at Riverside Plaza felt different this time. My sisters sat across from me, their usual confidence replaced by something closer to desperation. Between us lay 2 sets of project plans, theirs and mine. This is insane, Susan pushed my proposal away. We can't guarantee current residents can stay. The numbers don't work. They work perfectly. I pulled up the financial projections. You're just not used to profits taking longer than 6 months to materialize. Cora paced by the window. The investors will never agree. They already have. I slid across the preliminary approval letters. Turns out they prefer sustainable long-term returns over quick, risky profits. Who knew? Peyton, Susan's voice cracked slightly. This isn't just business for us. We've got everything riding on this project. So do the families you were planning to evict. I kept my voice level. The difference is, my plan lets everyone win. The door opened and Titus stormed in, face flushed. This stops now. The council meeting's been moved up to tomorrow morning. I smiled. I know. I requested the change. You what? Cora spun around. Actually, I checked my watch. The press conference should be starting right about now. I turned on the TV mounted on the wall. Kaya stood at a podium outside City Hall, surrounded by community members. Today marks a turning point, she was saying. Thanks to a new partnership between local residents and Russell Sustainable Development, the Riverside project will become a model for ethical urban renewal. Titus lunged for the remote, but I held it out of reach. Watch. Camden stepped up to the microphone next. The City Council fully supports this innovative approach to development. We're pleased to announce additional green energy grants have been secured. You had no right, Susan whispered. I had every right. I turned to face them. The moment you asked for my help, you opened this door. Did you really think I'd just be your sustainability puppet? We're your sisters, Cora slammed her hand on the table. Exactly. Which means I know exactly how you operate. I stood, walking to the window. Every shortcut, every ignored regulation, every community you've steamrolled. Did you think I hadn't been paying attention all these years? My phone buzzed. Maria sending the latest investor responses, all positive. The project goes forward with my plan, I continued, or it doesn't go forward at all. Your choice. Titus pulled out his phone. I'll fight this. With what? I turned back. Those illegal waste disposal photos, the falsified permit applications, The buried environmental reports? Please, try. The colour drained from his face. Face it, I gathered my papers. You've lost. The only question is whether you lose everything or just your inflated profit margins. Susan stood slowly. You planned this from the beginning, the moment I called you. I planned this the day you laughed at my sustainable development goals. I met her eyes. The day you called Dad's legacy small-time thinking. The day you decided profit matters more than people. Cora sank into a chair. The investors will side with us. We have relationships. Had relationships. I turned on my tablet, showing them the incoming emails. They're already signing on to the new proposal. Turns out ethical development is very attractive these days. What do you want? Susan's voice was barely audible. I want you to sign these. I placed 3 documents on the table. Full project control transfers to my company. You stay on as minor partners, 15% each. The community gets their guaranteed housing. Everyone wins. That's winning? Cora laughed bitterly. It's better than you deserve. I checked my phone again. You have 30 minutes before the investors meet to finalize the new structure. Choose wisely. Titus grabbed his coat. This is ridiculous. We can still... No, Susan cut him off, reaching for a pen. We can't. She signed first, hand trembling slightly. Cora followed after a long moment, not meeting my eyes. Welcome to ethical development, I said, collecting the signed papers. The community meeting's at 7. I expect you both there, smiling. Outside the conference room, I leaned against the wall, letting out a long breath. My phone buzzed with a message from Maria. Done. Done, I typed back. Start the permit applications. And Maria, thank you for everything. Any time, boss. Show them how small towns do business. I watched through the glass as my sisters sat in stunned silence, their empire of quick profits crumbling around them. They'd taught me well, just not the lessons they'd intended. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's forcing them to become better people. Now they'd learn what real development looked like, what real success meant, what our father had tried to teach us all along. And maybe, just maybe, they'd finally understand why I'd stayed behind in that small town they'd been so eager to escape. The community was waiting. It was time to build something that would last. These profit projections can't be right. Cora slapped a folder onto my temporary office desk. We've been going through the numbers all night. I didn't look up from my laptop. Good morning to you, too. Peyton, I'm serious. She leaned over my desk. These community programs you've added, the job training, the small business incubator, the childcare centre, they're bleeding money. For the first 18 months, I agreed, finally meeting her eyes. Then they start generating revenue. That's how sustainable development works. But the investors are thrilled. I turned my screen to show her the latest email chain. Because unlike you and Susan, they understand the value of long-term stability. The door opened and Susan walked in, looking like she hadn't slept. We have a problem. Titus is talking to the press. I know. I pulled up the morning's news coverage, claiming we're destroying the project's viability, threatening jobs, the usual tactics. You don't seem concerned, Cora narrowed her eyes. Because in about... I checked my watch. 15 minutes, Kaya is giving a press conference with 30 local business owners who've signed on to our retail spaces. Real businesses, not the luxury chains you had lined up. You can't just... Susan started. Actually, I can. Page 6 of the agreement you signed. Full operational control, remember? My phone buzzed. Maria sending construction updates from our other projects back home. Everything running smoothly without me. This isn't what we agreed to, Cora protested. No, it's better. I stood gathering materials for the morning meeting. You agreed to save your investment. I'm saving the whole neighbourhood. By cutting our profits in half. While tripling the project's long-term value, I headed for the door. Coming? The Community Oversight Committee meets in 10 minutes. They followed, radiating resentment. In the elevator, Susan finally spoke again. Dad would have hated this. I whirled on her. Dad would have loved this. He taught us business was about more than money. You're the ones who forgot that. The committee meeting room was packed. Kaya had assembled a diverse group of local leaders, all eager to participate in the project's new direction. Ms. Russell, an elderly woman stood as we entered. My granddaughter just enrolled in the job training program. Thank you. I smiled, watching my sisters shift uncomfortably. That's exactly why we're here. Now let's review the first phase timeline. Halfway through my presentation, Cora's phone buzzed. Her face went pale as she read the message. Titus, she whispered to Susan. He's found something. I continued presenting, but kept one eye on them as they slipped out. Through the glass walls, I watched their heated conversation in the hallway. After the meeting, I found them in my office, looking grim. He has proof, Susan said, about the hardware store, environmental violations from before Dad died. From when you two were still partners in the business, I corrected. I have those records too, including the dates you both signed off on cutting corners. Cora sank into a chair. You knew. I fixed everything after you left. Properly this time. I sat behind my desk. Those violations are as much your liability as mine. More, actually, since you were senior partners then. So we're trapped, Susan laughed bitterly. You've thought of everything. Not everything. I pulled out a new set of documents. I thought about what Dad would really want, so I'm offering you a choice. They looked at the papers suspiciously. Option 1. Stay on as minor partners, learn how ethical development works, rebuild our family's reputation the right way. And option 2? Cora asked. Walk away. Clean break. I'll buy out your shares at market value. Susan picked up the papers. Why would you do that? Because despite everything, you're my sisters. I stood, walking to the window. And because someone needs to show the development world there's a better way. Might as well be family. My phone buzzed. Kaya sending photos from the press conference, local business owners beaming with their signed leases. We need time to think, Cora said. You have until tomorrow. I turned back to them. Choose wisely. For once. After they left, I called Maria. How's it looking? Construction crews are ready, she said. The moment you give the word, we start transforming that neighborhood into something beautiful. And the hardware store? Still standing proud. Your dad would be amazed at what you've built from his little shop. I looked at the family photo on my desk. All of us in front of the store, years ago, before profit margins replaced principles. Maybe, I said softly. Or maybe he knew all along what we could become. Tomorrow my sisters would make their choice. But the real decision had been made years ago, when they chose to leave and I chose to stay. Sometimes the hardest part of family isn't holding on. It's knowing when to let go. The city council chambers buzzed with tension as I took my seat at the presenters' table. Kaya and Camden flanked me, while my sisters sat stiffly in the front row. They still hadn't given me their decision. This is your last chance to back down, Titus muttered as he passed by. Things could get ugly. They already were ugly, I replied, not bothering to lower my voice. That's why we're here. The council president called the meeting to order. Camera flashes lit up the room as reporters jockeyed for position. This wasn't just another development hearing. This was a showdown. The council will now hear final presentations regarding the Riverside project, she announced. Mr. Titus, you have the floor. He strode to the podium, oozing false confidence. Council members, what you're being asked to approve today is nothing short of economic suicide. These community programs and sustainability measures will destroy the project's viability. I watched the council members' faces as he spoke. Most were already checking their phones or shuffling papers. They'd seen his type before. Developers who thought profit margins were the only measure of success. Furthermore, he continued, pulling out a folder, I have evidence of past violations at Russell Sustainable Development's previous projects. Actually, Camden stood up, I have those records right here, including documentation showing how Ms. Russell corrected and reported every violation she discovered from the previous management, her sisters. Susan and Cora stiffened in their seats. I hadn't warned them about this part. The real question, Camden continued, is why the original violations were hidden by the previous owners. Perhaps Mr. Titus would like to explain his role in covering those up. Titus's face reddened. This is ridiculous. I demand— Your time is up, the council president cut in. Ms. Russell. I walked to the podium, laying out my presentation materials. Council members, residents of Riverside, I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to show you the future. The room fell silent as I pulled up the first slides. This is more than a development project. It's a blueprint for how we build communities that last. For the next 20 minutes, I walked them through every detail. Solar panels that would cut energy costs for residents, job training programs partnered with local businesses, green spaces designed by community members. But the most important part, I said, is this. I switched to the financial projections. Every resident who wants to stay can stay. Every local business that wants to grow can grow. And yes, the project still turns a profit, a sustainable one that benefits everyone. The costs, Titus tried to interrupt, are fully funded. I nodded to Camden, who distributed the grant approvals. Federal green energy credits, state development funds, private investors who understand that ethical development is good business. And the community supports this? The council president asked. We do. Kaya stood holding up a petition. 2,000 signatures, plus commitments from 40 local businesses ready to lease spaces. I glanced at my sisters. Susan sat perfectly still, but Cora was rapidly typing on her phone. Before we vote, I continued, I want to acknowledge something. I learned about development from my family's hardware store, about building things that last, about putting community first. Some people forgot those lessons. I met my sister's eyes. But it's never too late to remember them. The council president called for the vote. One by one, hands raised in approval. Titus stormed out before they finished counting. Motion passes unanimously, she announced. The Riverside project will proceed under Russell Sustainable Development's new plan. The room erupted in cheers. Kaya hugged me while Camden shook hands with council members. But I was watching my sisters. They approached slowly, looking almost lost. Congratulations, Susan said stiffly. You won. We all did. I held out my hand. If you're willing to learn a new way of doing things, Cora pulled out an envelope. We made our decision. I opened it, reading quickly. They'd chosen to stay on as minor partners. One condition, Susan added. We want to learn, really learn, about sustainable development, about building things that last. Like Dad taught us, Cora said softly. For the first time in years, I saw my sisters. Really saw them. Not the polished developers who'd left our hometown behind, but the girls who'd once helped stock shelves in our father's store. Deal. I shook their hands formally. Welcome to the future of development. My phone buzzed with a message from Maria. Construction crews ready. Just say when. Now, I typed back. It's time to build something beautiful. Outside the chambers, reporters swarmed us for comments, but I was watching the community members hugging each other, crying with relief, finally believing their homes were safe. Sometimes the biggest victories aren't about winning or losing, they're about remembering who you were meant to be all along. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to bring your family along for the ride. The autumn breeze carried the scent of fresh paint and new beginnings as I walked through the Riverside project with Maria. Construction crews worked alongside local apprentices, transforming old buildings into something remarkable. Hard to believe this is the same place, Maria said, watching a team install solar panels. Remember when your sisters thought this was impossible? Before I could answer, Susan's voice called out from behind us. We were wrong about a lot of things. She and Cora approached, wearing practical work clothes instead of their usual designer suits. They'd been spending more time on site lately, learning the business from the ground up. The community garden's ready for planting, Cora reported, consulting her tablet. Kaya's organising the residents for tomorrow's session. And the job training programme, I asked. 28 graduates already placed in permanent positions. Susan managed a small smile. You were right about the long-term benefits. A group of children ran past, heading to the new playground we'd built first, at the community's request. Their laughter echoed off buildings that now sported vibrant murals instead of foreclosure notices. Ms. Russell, an elderly woman, waved from her apartment window, one of the many residents who'd fought to stay. The solar panels are amazing. My electric bill's half what it used to be. That's Mrs. Rodriguez, Cora said. I remember when we were planning to, well, you know. Evict her, I finished. Amazing how things change when you actually talk to people instead of just seeing them as numbers on a spreadsheet. A construction foreman approached with questions about the rooftop garden specifications. As Susan confidently walked him through the details, I remembered how she'd once mocked these hippie features. Peyton, Maria nudged me, nodding toward the site entrance. Look who's here. Titus stood at the fence, staring at our progress. He'd lost several major projects since our showdown, as investors increasingly demanded sustainable development plans. Should we... Cora started. I'll handle it. I walked over to him. Coming to check on the impossible project. The market will never support this kind of development, he insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Really? I handed him our latest financial report. Because the waiting list for residential units suggests otherwise, and those hippie features you mocked? They've cut operating costs by 40%. He scanned the numbers, frowning. This can't be right. It is. I gestured at the site. This is the future of development, Titus. You can either adapt or become obsolete. Is that an offer? It's advice, free of charge. I turned back to my sisters, who were showing Maria the new community centre plans. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a neighbourhood to build. Camden arrived as Titus left, carrying fresh council approvals for our next phase. The city's already getting calls from other developers, he reported. They want to know how to replicate this model. Send them to Peyton, Susan said. She's the expert. The words hung in the air, an acknowledgement that would have been impossible just months ago. Actually, I looked at my sisters. Send them to all of us. We've got something better than expertise now. We've got proof it works. Kaya joined us, excitement evident in her voice. The first small business loans are approved, 10 local shops ready to move into the retail spaces, including Mrs. Rodriguez's daughter's bakery, Cora added, the one we almost displaced. We walked together through the project, past workers installing energy-efficient windows and residents planning their community garden plots. Every corner held a story of transformation, not just of buildings, but of people. Dad would have loved this, Susan said quietly. He does love it. I pointed to the hardware store logo we'd incorporated into the development's branding. His legacy lives in every sustainable choice we make. Maria checked her watch. The Community Council meets in 10 minutes. They're voting on the art installation proposals. As we headed to the meeting, I watched my sisters interact with residents by name, discussing solar panels and garden plans with genuine enthusiasm. They'd found something better than quick profits. They'd found purpose. You know, Cora said as we reached the community centre, I used to think you were naive, staying in that small town, running Dad's little store. And now? Now I think you are building something bigger than we could see. She paused. Thank you for not giving up on us. Inside, the community council room buzzed with activity. Residents shared ideas, local business owners planned collaborations, and children drew their dreams for their neighbourhood's future. This was what sustainable development really meant. Not just buildings and profits, but people and possibilities. Ready? Maria asked, handing me the meeting agenda. I looked around at my sisters, our team, and the community we'd brought together. Ready. Let's build something beautiful. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about showing others a better way forward. And sometimes, the hardest lessons lead to the most remarkable transformations.
My in-laws, leaving my mute and bedridden sister-in-law in my care, decided to jet off on a vacation to Singapore. Right before their departure, my husband Leo had the audacity to say, "Taking care of her is your job. Don't slack off. The moment Leo and his family left the house, my sister-in-law miraculously sat up and declared, "Okay, let's get going too." I'm Ava, 27 years old, and once dreamed of becoming a pop star as a teenager. However, that dream faded, and before I knew it, I was in my late 20s. I started dating Leo, whom I met through a friend, because my persistent mother kept asking when she would see her grandchild. In conversations with Leo, I learned that he too had once aspired to enter the entertainment industry in his youth. Despite our shared past aspirations, Leo now works at a prestigious trading company headquartered in downtown Manhattan. After college, I worked at a bank until I got married and quit. One day, Leo and I visited his parents' house. Leo's younger sister, Emma, fell ill with a fever during her childhood. Initially dismissed as a common cold by her mother, they eventually sought medical attention when the fever persisted. It turned out to be encephalitis caused by influenza. Unfortunately, by then, it was too late, and the prolonged high fever left Emma with brain damage, rendering her bedridden. The fever also affected the part of her brain controlling speech, leaving her unable to communicate verbally. My mother-in-law took on the primary caretaking role for Emma. Despite Emma's condition, we developed a close bond, and I always anticipated visiting Leo's family. Since she couldn't converse verbally, Emma used sign language. Over time, I naturally picked up sign language as well. One day, I signed to Emma, "We're like best friends who've known each other forever, aren't we?" She replied, "Yes, we are. Let's stay close friends forever." I assured her, "Of course we will." However, my mother-in-law, in complete contrast to Emma, consistently directed sarcasm towards me. Leo and I reside in a condo, approximately a 23-minute drive from his parents' house. Yet my mother-in-law occasionally drove over unannounced, nitpicking at various aspects, like Ethan's supposedly filthy shoes, claiming it reflects poorly on his work and making it my responsibility to keep them clean. My mother-in-law persistently referred to Leo as Ethan, emphasizing, "Make sure you always fold the laundry neatly. If you don't, Ethan will be in a bad mood." She, being the one who raised Leo with these peculiar expectations, insisted, "No matter how late Ethan gets home, you must never go to bed before him, even if Ethan says it's okay for you to go to bed first." Such old-fashioned demands were a constant from her. During our dating and early marriage days, Leo was genuinely kind, always agreeing with me. If I wasn't feeling well and asked to have dinner outside, he readily agreed. If I fancied a designer bag, he'd buy it for me the following month. However, about a year into our marriage, Leo's behavior started to change. Or perhaps he reverted to his original self. He began arriving home late, reeking of alcohol. Leo claimed increased work commitments on Saturdays and Sundays, avoiding joining me when he occasionally visited his parents' home, which struck me as odd. Fed up, I decided to confront him one day, saying, "Leo, you've become so distant lately. It feels like you're a completely different person." Leo glared at me momentarily before retorting, "That's not true. You're overthinking things." I expressed my concern, noting that it seemed like you rarely engaged in conversation with me anymore. Advising you to stop overthinking, I urged you to drop the topic. In response, you walked away to take a shower, effectively ending the conversation. 2 days later, Leo surprised me by announcing his plans to go home that Sunday. Taken aback, as Leo had consistently declined my company on previous visits, I tentatively suggested accompanying him this time. He responded by questioning my willingness, to which I eagerly affirmed my desire to join. Expressing my interest in seeing Emma, Leo frowned slightly and remarked on the apparent camaraderie between Emma and me. On Monday, I drove us to Leo's family home in Derry. En route, we made a stop at a bakery to purchase pastries as a thoughtful gesture. Upon arrival, Leo's mother greeted us with her customary frown, seemingly displeased to see me. Undeterred, I offered her the pastries in an attempt to lighten the atmosphere, addressing her as a prospective mother-in-law. She swiftly took the pastries from my hands, examining them before responding with a touch of disdain. "Is it these pastries again? They're becoming rather mundane. But since you insist, I'll have them." Despite her initial indifference, her face lit up like a child receiving a cherished toy. Leo inquired about his father's presence, and I learned that Leo's father, though elderly, remained actively engaged in work. Upon discovering that he was currently out at a meeting, Leo casually mentioned that he had something to discuss with him. Intrigued, I questioned Leo about the matter, expressing my surprise at not having been informed by him. Leo, however, dismissed my inquiry with a curt, It's none of your business. I pushed back, reminding him that we were a married couple and suggesting he stop evading the topic. Irritated, Leo retorted, "Can you just stop nagging?" His mother chimed in, saying, "Exactly. If Leo doesn't want to tell you something, you shouldn't be prying." Realizing that arguing with her would be futile, I chose not to respond. At that moment, Leo's sister entered the scene, exclaiming, "Oh, Leo, you're here!" Seizing the opportunity, Leo began discussing something he apparently wanted to share with her, prompting her to inquire, "What is it?" I found myself contemplating the prospect of an extended vacation next month, with Leo proposing a family trip to Singapore. However, my sister declined the offer, citing the absence of a passport. This revelation left me momentarily surprised, considering Leo's typically demanding work schedule and infrequent breaks. Concerned, I asked Leo about his job, wondering if everything was all right. Leo assured me that his work was going fine, but my mother-in-law appeared displeased with my involvement in Leo's business affairs. She expressed her disapproval with a deep frown, asserting that I shouldn't meddle in decisions Leo had made, accusing me of being overly nosy. In the midst of this tension, she disclosed the true reason for our meeting. In a rather unexpected turn of events, she declared, "Ava, I want you to take care of Emma during the time we're on vacation." I was initially taken aback by the responsibility thrown my way, but soon the realization dawned on me that spending time with Emma would likely be more enjoyable than embarking on a trip to Singapore with my mother-in-law. I agreed to take care of Emma, questioning why Leo had brought me all the way here for such a simple request. Leo explained that he believed conveying the message in front of his mother would lead to a quicker understanding on my part. It seemed he assumed that the presence of his mother would add a sense of urgency to the matter. Upon discovering that my Singapore trip was off the table, Leo's peculiar desire for my mother-in-law to forcefully sway my decision became evident. Feeling perplexed, I left the room and made my way to Emma's room. Emma greeted me with delight, asking how I had been. After explaining that Leo had invited me to join him at our parents' house, Emma noted the peculiarity of the situation. She remarked on Leo's past habit of excluding me from his visits, indicating that my brother was undoubtedly hiding something. Despite Leo's impending trip to Singapore, I decided to stay back, finding solace in the idea. With a smile, I shared my decision with Emma, who responded with a matching grin, suggesting that I come over and stay at her place. I agreed, and we spent an enjoyable time chatting. Emma, who always struck me as different from my mother-in-law, seemed supportive of my choice. An hour later, Leo came to fetch me, and we returned home. During our departure, Emma subtly winked at me, hinting at a shocking truth and an even more astonishing plan that she was about to unveil. A month later, on the day of the Singapore trip, Leo and I visited his parents' house. Despite not being part of the Singapore journey, I brought my luggage along, intending to stay at my in-laws' place for a week with Emma. As I carried my luggage into Emma's room, she exclaimed with a playful grin, "It's finally happening!" Returning to the living room, I found everyone bound for Singapore already gathered. Notably absent was Leo's father, indicating that he wasn't joining the trip. As the departure time approached, the entire family, with Leo's voice standing out, emphasized that taking care of Emma was my responsibility, urging me not to slack off. Even my mother-in-law added, "Please get along well with Emma. It's better for you to stay here, isn't it? If anything happens to Emma, it's all your fault, and we'll hold you responsible." Despite the absurdity of these words coming from someone about to leave their immobile sister for a vacation, I chose not to react. Leo's statements held no significance for me at that moment, and I wasn't in the mood to see them off. Returning to Emma's room, I was interrupted as Emma energetically sprang up from her bed, calling out, "Come on, let's get going." This echoed a recent conversation where Emma had revealed her newfound ability to walk and engage in conversations. Curious about a revelation I had just learned, I asked Emma, "Since last year, I suppose, why have you been hiding this from the rest of the family?" Emma then embarked on an unexpected narrative, sharing, "Actually, my father and mother are both remarried. I'm my dad's child from his previous marriage, and my sister and brother are from my mom's side." Although surprised by this disclosure, considering the usual distant and cold demeanor of my mother-in-law towards Emma, I couldn't help but think, "I thought so. Is that so?" Emma confirmed, "Yeah, my mom despises me, and I didn't want to talk to her, so I pretended that I couldn't." Curious about her father's stance on the matter, I inquired, "And your father?" Emma assured me, "Dad knows everything. He's always on my side." Understanding the complexities of Emma's family dynamics, I simply responded, "I see." Emma then dropped a bombshell, proposing, "That's why, regarding this trip to Singapore, I'm thinking we should go too." Confused, I asked, "Huh, what do you mean?" She clarified, "I mean, I'm planning to go to Singapore on the same day with you. We'll even stay at the same resort," delivering this unexpected revelation with a sparkle in her eye that caught me completely off guard. "I'd be thrilled to go to Singapore with you, Emma, but do you even have a passport?" "Of course. I secretly got my passport last month, and don't worry about the expenses. My dad is covering our plane tickets and the resort, including yours." "I see. I'm really looking forward to this." And that's how we found ourselves at the airport today, Emma and I, arriving via taxi. My father-in-law was there, waiting to see us off. "Ava, it's been a while. I know it must be surprising, but I hope you enjoy the trip to Singapore." "Thank you, father-in-law. I feel guilty for all the plane tickets and resort fees you've covered." "Huh, don't worry about it. As long as you two have fun, I'm happy. Thank you for your kindness." After that, we boarded a plane from a different airline than usual. In the early morning, our arrival in Singapore marked the beginning of our stay. Opting for a taxi from the airport, we checked into the resort hotel, where Emma and I were to share a room. During a casual conversation, I mentioned to Emma, "Your father seems pretty well traveled." "Yeah, he's been on several international business trips. He's even been to Singapore a few times." Curious about the evening plans, I speculated, "So, what's the plan? I'm guessing my mom and everyone will dine at the restaurant here tonight. I'm thinking of surprising them." "That sounds like fun. I'm excited. Should we get some rest to recover from jet lag?" "That sounds like a good idea. I couldn't sleep at all on the plane." After a refreshing shower, we climbed into bed and quickly fell asleep, only to wake up around late afternoon close to 3 o'clock. Emma, already awake, had begun the process of applying makeup. "I'm sorry I slept too much." "Don't worry about it. I just woke up too. We really had a good sleep, didn't we? Fully recharged and ready for our battle." Around 5 o'clock, I told Emma, "I'll go and check the restaurant." As I discreetly surveyed the restaurant's entrance for Leo and his party, I found them joyfully dining in a far-off spot. Realizing I was too far away to identify anyone, I ventured deeper into the restaurant. From my new vantage point, all I could see were their backs, making it challenging to recognize anyone. However, I noticed the back of a young woman I didn't recognize, and it struck me that there wasn't such a woman when they had left Leo's parents' house. Taken aback, I nearly let out a loud gasp, but managed to suppress it. Straining my ears, I could intermittently hear Leo and my mother-in-law's voices. "I'm glad it's not that woman today. Yeah, I really drew the short straw. She's tainted my family record. If only we had an elegant daughter like her from the start. I want to divorce her and start fresh soon. Try to find a reason for the divorce and extract a hefty alimony from that woman. Even without a cause for the divorce, it's fine. I can fabricate as many as I want. She's so bad that I want to throw her in the trash. I want to see my grandchild from you and her soon." My mother-in-law was giving the woman a smile that she had never shown me before. Driven by the urge to step forward and confront the woman, I held it in, returning to my room. When I told Emma about it, she asked, "Took a while." "I'm sorry. I saw something shocking. Leo brought a woman that I've never seen before." "What?" I was about to scream. Leo and my mother-in-law were continuously bad-mouthing me, and Leo even mentioned finding a reason for divorce. "That's terrible." Leo called me a bad catch, but seeing him with another woman, I felt relieved. Now I can divorce him outright. That's a good thing. Shall we make our entrance then? Emma and I headed towards the restaurant hall. Upon entering, we requested to sit near Leo's table and managed to get a seat quite close to them. They didn't notice our arrival. Sitting nearby, we overheard their conversation, which continued to be filled with derogatory comments about me. I was amazed and ended up giving a bitter smile at how they could badmouth me indefinitely. Emma gave a nod and a smile, signaling the start of our counterattack. I stood up, moved towards Leo, and exclaimed, "Are you all having a good time?" The expressions on Leo and my mother-in-law's faces were unforgettable in that moment. Their mouths agape, eyes wide open, they froze for a few seconds. After a moment, my mother-in-law finally spoke. "Why are you here, and how did Emma get here without a wheelchair?" In response, Emma stood up, offered a smile to my mother-in-law, and said, "I don't need a wheelchair. Thanks to you, my body and speech have returned to normal. I must have caused you quite a bit of trouble for a long time. My mother-in-law, still stunned, asked, Emma, when did you regain your ability to speak? I wonder when that was, maybe last year. Then why did you hide it until now? Because it was better if you guys continued to believe that I couldn't speak. You and Leo were speaking ill of me earlier, weren't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale in an instant. What do you mean? She asked. Yeah, we weren't saying anything bad about you, Ava, Leo retorted. That won't work. I recorded everything on my phone. Do you want me to play it back right now? I countered. My mother-in-law fell silent, but Leo stood up. Ava, you've been causing me trouble all this time, and now you're making these outrageous claims, he barked. I pointed out that he was the one making absurd claims. Once I return back home, I'll immediately contact my lawyer to initiate our divorce procedure. You can't deny the fact that you're on a vacation abroad with another woman. Plus, you described getting with me as drawing a blank lottery ticket, so I expect you to demonstrate sincerity by paying a hefty compensation for that comment, I declared. At my words, my mother-in-law seemed to acknowledge her defeat, and her attitude abruptly changed. Ava, dear, I really like you. Please try to get along with Leo. This woman is not involved with him, she pleaded. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. Since I am a blank lottery ticket, I cannot live with Leo. Please enjoy your time with this woman. Oh, and I might also seek compensation from her. Isn't that exciting? I couldn't help but smirk as the woman in question turned pale and began to tremble upon hearing my words. Unfazed by the public gaze, Leo fell to his knees and pleaded, Ava, I beg you, don't make this a big deal. My company has strict rules about this, he implored. What's that? You don't sound sorry at all, I replied. Leo appeared taken aback, then tried again. Ava, I beg you, forgive me. If my company finds out, I'll lose my job, he confessed. Though your plea sounds better now, I will never forgive you. You are married, and yet here you are on an overseas trip with another woman, I said firmly. Upon hearing my words, my mother-in-law also fell to her knees next to Leo, pleading, please forgive my son, tears streaming down her face. By this time, all the other customers were watching us, and the restaurant manager started walking towards our table. Seeing this, I got up and said, well, Emma and I will head back to our room. You all enjoy your Singapore vacation. I guess things will get a bit difficult when you get back home. Hearing this, Leo, crying, shouted at the top of his lungs, please forgive me. Unable to afford any compensation, Leo's loud outburst prompted the restaurant manager to intervene. Frowning, the manager communicated discreetly with a staff member and then politely conveyed to Leo that he was disturbing other guests and needed to leave. Confused, Leo was taken aback and failed to grasp the manager's words. Soon after, 2 robust security guards arrived and swiftly escorted Leo away. Despite his sobbing and struggling, he proved no match for the sturdy men. My mother-in-law and the woman were left dumbfounded, unable to utter a word, while Emma and I were equally surprised by the unexpected turn of events. In my opinion, Leo had received a well-deserved consequence. A week later, Emma and I returned home. It appeared that Leo had been quickly released and had retreated to his room. However, I later learned that he had been in a state of shock since returning, maintaining a reclusive demeanor until the end of the trip. The day after our return marked the beginning of Leo's seclusion. Upon returning home, I promptly visited the law firm where my old college friend worked to initiate divorce proceedings. Unfortunately, my friend was unavailable, but a competent female lawyer was assigned to assist me. This lawyer proved to be very approachable, allowing me to share the details of the events that had transpired. After attentively listening to my story, the lawyer assured me that a divorce was feasible, and I could pursue alimony. She pledged to investigate the woman who had accompanied Leo in Singapore, evaluating the possibility of claiming alimony from her as well. A month later, the female lawyer reached out to convey the findings, revealing that it had been substantiated that Leo had been dating this other woman for approximately 5 months. Consequently, she informed me that I could indeed demand alimony from both Leo and his newfound partner. Taking advantage of this revelation, I requested the female lawyer to exert maximum effort in securing alimony from both Leo and the woman he was involved with. She responded with a reassuring smile and a nod. 3 months later, significant progress had been made in the divorce proceedings. The legal actions were unfolding, seeking the compensation I rightfully deserved from both Leo and his newfound partner. Having officially concluded my divorce, I glanced at my bank account, finding the alimony from both parties deposited. As I mumbled about the amount, I couldn't help but consider it as karma for Leo's derogatory remarks, particularly referring to me as a blank lottery ticket. 3 months later, I found Leo and my mother-in-law unexpectedly at my doorstep. Despite the brief period since our divorce, both of them had visibly lost weight and appeared utterly haggard. With a mixture of surprise and disdain, I asked them, "What do you want?" "I don't want to see your faces." In a thin voice, Leo replied, "I'm sorry. Could you lend me some money? I've lost my job and the woman ran away. I don't even have money for food." My mother-in-law, also speaking in a whisper, added, "I've divorced my husband too. I don't have money. Please, I beg you." She was in tears. I responded with a cold determination. "Too bad. I have absolutely no obligation to help you, and even if I did, I would never assist you now. Please leave." After they departed, I sprinkled a large amount of salt at my entrance to rid my house of the negative energy they brought with them. "All right. Okay, what's going on at this hour? Where are you right now?" I questioned. "You ask where I am? I'm on a spa vacation with Evelyn," Jack replied. "Oh, I see," I responded with a mix of realization and frustration. I discovered everything when my husband lied to me. I'm Ava, a 29-year-old office worker married to Jack for 6 years. We share an 8-year-old daughter, Evelyn. The truth surfaced during a moment of family cooking. "Evelyn, I'll help you," I said. "Really? Then can you roll the hamburger patties like this?" Evelyn asked. "Yes, I'll do it," I affirmed. As we cooked together, Evelyn showcased her skills, creating personalized patties for each family member. The joyful cooking atmosphere, however, took a turn when Jack emerged from the bath. "I made your hamburger, Daddy," Evelyn cheerfully announced, unaware of the tension in the air. "I made your hamburger, Daddy," my husband's joyful response echoed through the kitchen. "Really? I can't wait to eat it," he added, his happiness evident. We were spending our days seemingly as a very happy family, or at least that's what I thought. Both my husband and I were employed, but his workplace was closer to our home, and he had fewer overtime commitments. Consequently, I often relied on him to pick up our daughter from kindergarten. However, due to recent work commitments, he had been coming home late, and I found myself having to pick her up and take her home. I began to worry if Daddy didn't like me anymore, my daughter expressing her sadness on our way home from kindergarten. She missed him because he had been picking her up all this time, and his late-night arrivals meant there were days when he didn't get to see her face. Despite my breaking heart, I assured her that Daddy was working hard for her, and when he settled down, he would spend more time with her. "But he's always late, Mommy," she said with a hint of disappointment. I continued to comfort her. "Daddy is working very hard for Evelyn right now, but when he gets settled down, he will be able to spend a lot of time with you, really." "Okay, I'll support him with Mommy," she agreed. "I'll even cook for him." She was such a good girl, and I eagerly anticipated the day we could all eat together as a family again. However, a few months later, my husband's work commitments persisted. He continued to come home late, and the situation worsened as he started arriving at 1:55 a.m., or even worse, taking the first train home in the morning. "Hey, are you sure it's just work?" The growing uncertainty lingered in my mind. "If you're just out drinking, I wish you'd come home and play with Evelyn. I can't stand it any longer," I complained to my husband. "My daughter has been left alone by her father for a month, and she looks very sad," I added. But my husband didn't appreciate what I said, and he got upset. What's with that tone of voice? I attend company drinking parties for the sake of my family. It's terrible of you to accuse me of that." "Whoa, okay, I'm sorry, but you have to understand that Evelyn is lonely because she doesn't get to play with her dad," I tried to explain. He fell silent and went straight to the bedroom, creating an awkward atmosphere between us. Later, I was informed by the company that I needed to go on a short business trip. Depending on the work situation, there were many things I needed to check in person, and it seemed I would have to stay at least 2 nights. If it was bad, it might be 3 nights. My immediate concern was what to do with my daughter. My parents lived far away, making it difficult for them to come. I would have to rely on my husband, but given how busy he had been lately, I didn't know if I could trust him with her. Despite my reservations, I had no choice but to ask him. So, I waited for him to come home. When he finally arrived, well past midnight, I wondered if he had been drinking as usual. Around 2 o'clock, I heard the door unlock. "Welcome home, Ava. I didn't know you were still up." My husband expressed surprise, clearly not expecting me to be awake and waiting for him. "I waited for you because I wanted to talk to you." Talk? My husband, clearly intoxicated, questioned. The moment he stumbled through the door, it was evident that he had been drinking. His face was flushed, but as he sat down at the dining table, he seemed to sober up, and his complexion turned pale. "So, what did you want to talk about? It's not such a big deal," he slurred, looking at me. I hesitated for a moment, observing his unpredictable mood, then proceeded to tell him about my upcoming business trip. "It's short notice, but I have to go on a business trip in 2 weeks on Friday. I'll need to stay at least one night, and if I have a lot of work, it might be 2 nights. Can you take care of Evelyn during that time?" "I know you're busy with your work," I explained apologetically. To my surprise, my husband looked relieved. "Oh, that's totally fine, really. Are you okay at work?" "Of course I'm busy, but I should prioritize you and Evelyn," he replied. "How about I take a day off and take Evelyn on an overnight hot spring trip? I haven't been able to spend time with her lately. I'm sure Evelyn would love that." I felt a sense of relief hearing his willingness to help and spend time with our daughter. "I'm glad you said that. I knew you cared about our family. Until recently, I was worried about whether you really cared about us or not, but it seems that my fears were unfounded." The next day, on the way to drop my daughter off at kindergarten, I shared the news with her. "What? Daddy and I can go on the hot spring trip together." My daughter's excitement filled the air, and her joy brought a smile to my face. Then came the day of the business trip. It was my first one since giving birth to Evelyn, but surprisingly, everything went smoother than expected. The people I met during the trip were cooperative, keeping everything in order for my review. The work progressed so well that I found myself finishing by 6 p.m. that day, thinking, if I'm already finished, I can go home today. I considered spending the first day at a manga cafe instead of staying at a hotel. Unsure if I would stay 2 nights or 3, I hadn't finalized my lodging plans to avoid cancellation fees. Now, with the work completed smoothly, I could make it home in time for the last train if I got a ticket. Deciding to enjoy a relaxing time at home, I hurriedly boarded the train. I envisioned my husband and daughter having a delightful meal at a hotel by now. The image of my daughter looking so happy warmed my heart. Yes, tomorrow morning I'll wake up early, clean the house, and surprise them both, I thought as I returned home around 10 p.m. I wondered why the light was still on in the living room. Could it be that my husband forgot to turn it off? With a critical look on my face, I entered the house. There I found my daughter curled up on the sofa crying. "Oh, Evelyn, what's wrong? Mommy's here. Where's Daddy?" My husband was nowhere to be seen, and my concern turned into frustration. I was so upset that I began bombarding my daughter with questions. Then she told me, "Daddy left in the morning without me." What? What the hell is going on? What was your father thinking? Fury boiled inside me at my husband's incomprehensible behavior, but I had to calm her down first. I hugged her tightly. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I know you were lonely being alone so late at night." As I held her and gently stroked her head, my daughter, perhaps feeling relieved, started to drift into sleep in my arms. It seemed she was tired of being scared and nervous all the time. Carefully carrying her into the bedroom, I then returned to the living room and called my husband. "Ava, why are you calling at this hour? Where are you now?" His voice sounded irritated. "I'm currently on a spa trip with Evelyn." "Why are you whispering?" you ask. "Evelyn is already tired and asleep. I don't want to disturb her." "Oh, I see," you reply. "I'm sure she's sleeping, but she's not there," I explain. I pieced it all together when my husband lied to me. I was on the verge of losing my temper, but I managed to keep my composure. "How's the trip going?" you inquire. "I'm having a great time. I wouldn't mind extending the stay for another night. The food is excellent and the hot springs are amazing," I respond. "Well, why don't you stay one more night then?" you suggest. I express my desire to do so, and my husband seems to struggle with the decision. However, you interject, asking if I'll come home after one night. I reassure you, but my husband hesitates. "Then you'll be lonely all by yourself, so me and Evelyn will come back tomorrow," you propose. I suspect it's because if I arrive home first, I'll discover that he left her daughter at home. Aware of his thoughts, I decide to fabricate a story. "I have a lot of work to do, and I'll be home later than planned. I'll have to stay another night. Don't worry about me. Enjoy your trip as long as you like," I say. Surprisingly, he doesn't question my lie. "Really? Then I'll postpone it for one more night. Evelyn is very excited. I'll have to give her more," you declare. I haven't spent much time with my daughter lately. "Daddy, make sure to call me when you know when you're coming home. My daughter's excited," you remind me. Perplexed, I inquire about what you're talking about. You explain that she was curled up and crying by herself. Suppressing the urge to yell, I hang up the phone, determined to ensure he faces consequences for the pain he's causing my daughter. I promptly call my parents to explain the situation. The next morning, I start packing and arrange for movers to expedite the process. Luckily, a company can come on short notice and my belongings are swiftly moved out. My daughter watches as many men come in and out of the house, giving me a puzzled look. Realizing I need to talk to her, I take a moment. Evelyn, I've decided not to live with your dad anymore. I don't want you to be sad. I'm quitting my job and going to live with your grandma and grandpa. This way, I can spend more time with you. If you come with me, you won't be able to see your dad anymore. What do you want to do? It feels harsh posing such a question to my 8-year-old daughter, but I value her opinion. She responds with a muffled voice, "Will I never see my daddy again?" If you really want to see him, I can arrange for you to see him once in a while, but he won't be able to live with us anymore, I explain gently. My daughter hasn't done anything wrong, and I want her to have the option to see him if she desires. However, considering he left his own daughter alone at home while he went on vacation, I doubt he'll prioritize time for her after the divorce. As I pondered these thoughts, my daughter seemed to have made up her mind. She looked at me with determination and said, "I'm going with you, Mommy. Daddy probably doesn't care about me." I recall crying and pleading with him, asking why he was leaving me, but he departed without offering any answers. It's disheartening that he would manipulate his 8-year-old daughter to justify his actions and go on vacation with his adulterer. He proves to be a lousy man, a lousy father, nothing more than trash below the bottom of the barrel. Reflecting on the situation, I regret leaving my daughter with him for a business trip. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry for making you so sad," I tell her, embracing her tightly as we prepare for the move. Regarding my husband, I leave the rest to others. With this in mind, I take my daughter and return to my parents' house. A few hours later, my husband calls in confusion. "Hey, why is your stuff missing and Evelyn's stuff too? What the hell is going on?" he demands. "Don't you know why?" I respond. "Evelyn's crying because her stuff is gone too. Do you still think you can lie to me after all of this? It's quite peculiar." Evelyn is currently savoring noodles crafted by my mother. "What? We're well aware that you abandoned your daughter for a trip with someone else. How could you leave an 8-year-old girl alone at home? You're not fit to be a father. If I hadn't returned on that day, you could have traumatized Evelyn for her entire life." My husband, realizing I'm already with our daughter, remains silent, unable to utter a word. "Regardless, you don't care about your daughter, leaving her alone just to pursue another woman. I can't coexist with you any longer. I demand a divorce." "Divorce? Oh no, please reconsider. I can't. I don't want to see you anymore." While my husband and I conversed over the phone, the doorbell incessantly rang. Oh God, who could it be at a time like this? My husband sounded irritated, yet I knew exactly who it was. "It seems they've arrived, Dad and Mom," I declared, hearing my husband's voice wince over the phone. A few seconds later, my father-in-law erupted in a yell. "What the hell are you doing?" I exclaimed, and within seconds, a loud noise resonated. Well, that's the beginning. I surmised that was the sound of him getting beaten up. In reality, my father-in-law had practiced judo for many years and was currently an advisor at a university. He cherished his granddaughter Evelyn deeply. So, when I disclosed my husband's infidelity and the fact that he left our daughter alone on a trip, my father-in-law was furious. He declared his intent to give my husband a beating, vowing to pummel the rotten guts out of him. Taking advantage of the situation, I decided to ask him for a favor. "What the hell do you think you're doing with your own daughter? I didn't raise you to be such an..." I could hear my stepfather's angry voice, his thoughts echoing repeatedly. Though we lived in an apartment, I was relieved it was on the first floor. Had there been people downstairs, they would have surely complained. Regardless, since we've already moved out, it doesn't concern me anymore. My father-in-law seemed to have put immense pressure on my husband, both physically and mentally. Subsequently, the divorce settlement proceeded smoothly. I naturally gained custody, and alimony along with child support was settled in a single lump sum. Remarkably, I managed to secure alimony from the adulterer's partner as well. My husband attempted to remarry the adulterer, but it turned out their affair was merely for her amusement. She found him too serious and opted out of marriage, ending the relationship. At work, he grapples with shame for committing adultery, facing disapproval from his parents, abandonment from his affair partner, and even his daughter left him. It's a fitting outcome. He truly deserves it. On the contrary, I am basking in happiness, spending quality time with my daughter at my parents' farmhouse. They're farmers, and I've been assisting them. My daughter relishes the fresh vegetables from the farm and embraces the abundance of nature around us. I am committed to prioritizing my daughter in my life. Leaving your young daughter alone on an adulterous trip is unforgivable. Reporting your husband to the police for such negligence should have been the course of action. I sincerely hope Evelyn isn't too heartbroken. Nevertheless, it's gratifying to witness your husband losing everything he had. Ava, I wish you continued happiness with your daughter.
If you refuse to comply with my demands, we're headed for divorce, a fact he emphasized by thrusting the divorce papers into my hands. This inevitable outcome had been looming on the horizon sooner or later. "All right then, let's get a divorce," I declared. Met with his puzzled "what?" Unfazed, I defiantly completed the divorce papers right before his eyes. "All right then, I'll fight it," he countered, though his own act of handing me the papers seemed to have left him strangely stunned. "You don't grasp the reality, do you?" I retorted without me. "You'll find yourself utterly alone." His dismissive response, Yeah, I'm alone by myself," only fueled my determination. "Is that all you want to say?" "Then that's enough," I snapped, redirecting my focus to the urgent task of packing for my impending departure. His confusion deepened. "What are you packing for moving out?" "What?" With unwavering resolve, I clarified. "It's obvious, isn't it? I'm going to divorce you and move out." It's perfect timing. As the culmination of my marriage to Liam, a loveless alliance forged 6 years ago, approached its climax, I couldn't help but reflect on the past. The tragic loss of my parents in an accident during my first year of work left me in solitude. Back then, I genuinely appreciated the companionship marriage brought, but now it was time for a new chapter. My name is Ava, and this is my story. I once dreamed of creating a family with him and having 3 children. However, those dreams of a bright future shattered as the harsh reality unfolded after our wedding. Liam's initial warmth gradually gave way to coldness. In the midst of our small arguments, Liam would often repeat, "Ava, if I'm gone, you'll be a loner again." These clashes were marked by his consistent attacks on my vulnerabilities, particularly his dissatisfaction with my housework. His discontent was evident when he questioned the dinner choices, remarking, "Is this stir-fried vegetables for dinner tonight? The dishes are for old people." "In my defense," I would remind him, "didn't I call you to ask what you want to eat today?" His response was a retort. "You said whatever, but I still believe a housewife should consider what her husband wants to eat and cook it." Liam's complaints continued, expressing his desire for pie Asia for dinner. I countered, "Then say so. You should express your preferences without being asked." Frustration escalated as he replied, "You'd complain no matter what I cook." Feeling indignant, I asserted, "I work just as hard as you do, and I'm the sole caretaker of the housework." Liam, dismissive, replied, "Don't talk like that. You claimed to like doing housework before we got married." I reluctantly admitted, "It's true. I liked it, but if you're always complaining about it, I don't want to do it anymore." Liam's response was a simple "I see." The escalating tension in our marriage cast a shadow over the dreams I once held for our family. "What?" "No, I just thought you were being cheeky." Making comments like that diminishes your opinion of me, and I don't appreciate it. I don't want a wife who talks down to me like this. You're always reading into things. Here we go again. "Next, you'll bring up the fact that I'm alone in the world," Liam asserted, following a pattern he always repeated after arguments. "Maybe having kids will make your loneliness go away. Maybe it's time for us to have kids too," he added, a statement he never forgot to make post-conflict. In the early days of our marriage, I eagerly wanted to start a family, but the kind and caring husband I once knew disappeared. Now, faced with the man who consistently complains, I hesitate about having children with him. While it's true that I have no other relatives than Liam, I was independent before marrying him. I have enough resources to sustain myself, and the thought of returning to loneliness is less daunting than enduring Liam's threats. The prospect of having a child with him is daunting, as I fear spending a lifetime subjected to his abuse. Imagining him mistreating me in front of our own child is unbearable, and the more I think about it, the more I find myself leaning towards the idea of returning to a solitary life. I found myself unable to progress in my relationship with Liam, and this dissatisfaction was mutual. Liam, displeased with my hesitation, confronted me before we got married. "You said you wanted kids right away, so why are you so reluctant about having a baby now?" "This feels like fraud." Defensively, I shot back. "If that's the case, why don't you make me feel comfortable about having kids? Are you going to complain about my cooking in front of the kids or nitpick my housework and the way I fold clothes?" "I'm not complaining. I'm just expressing my thoughts," he retorted, seemingly dismissive of my concerns. Frustrated, I countered. "That's just how it sounds to you because you're a perfectionist. I guess your personality gets distorted when you don't have parents in your childhood." Liam's response was a dismissive laugh, claiming, "I'm not making a fool out of you." However, the goofy grin on his face betrayed his true intentions, proving that he was, indeed, mocking me. Adding to the complexity was my mother-in-law, who never missed an opportunity to inquire any grandchildren yet. This question became a regular interrogation every time I visited my in-laws. Exasperated, I retorted, "That's right, you should tell her too." The strained dynamics in our relationship and the pressure from external sources cast a shadow over the once promising prospect of starting a family with Liam. "She's not helping at all. Ava, what's going on?" My mother-in-law stared at me, leaving me speechless. "Well, I guess there are things going on." "Liam, you should talk it over with Ava," she suggested. "I talk to her all the time, but this woman," Liam began, but my mother-in-law interjected firmly. "Don't call her this woman. Just make sure you and Ava talk it out, okay?" "Okay, I understand," Liam conceded. My mother-in-law, not one to dwell on conversation, had been living alone since her husband's death. While not a bad person, she never missed an opportunity to inquire about grandchildren, making it particularly tough on me. I could sense her eagerness for me to start a family, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her that I was unsure about marrying Liam due to his personality. I had no choice but to keep my feelings to myself. Then, the unexpected happened. My mother-in-law had an accident. Liam called me at work, and I rushed to the hospital, arriving earlier than he did. "I'm sorry for disturbing you." "Mother, are you all right?" Liam asked with concern. "I'm fine, as you can see." "Well, it's just that I broke a bone in my leg," she explained, prompting Liam to console her with an empathetic, "Oh my God, you don't have to cry like that." The unexpected turn of events added a new layer of complexity to our already strained relationships. I found myself overcome with tears, apologizing, "I'm sorry. I was afraid I might lose you too in an accident. I was so worried on the way here." It was an emotional moment, and I couldn't help but express my fears. Liam's mother responded, "Oh, well, I guess he didn't tell you. I'm sorry I made you worried. I'm sorry you had to remember what happened to your parents." This unexpected conversation marked the first time my mother-in-law and I opened up about a range of topics. As the conversation came to a close, she suggested, "You should go home now." However, I insisted, "I'll wait for Liam to come. I'll go home with him." But, unexpectedly, my mother-in-law intervened, saying, "He's not coming, so you can just go home." Surprised, I questioned her statement, to which she responded, That's not true. I'm his mother, I know." Sadly, her prediction proved accurate, as Liam failed to show up even after visiting hours. When I returned home, I found him casually watching TV. Angry and frustrated, I confronted him, asking, "What are you doing? You called me to tell me your mother had an accident today, didn't you? So why didn't you come to the hospital?" His indifferent response was, "Oh, I thought you were going." One is enough, right? She's still alive anyway. Then it's not a big deal. She's the only mother you have, right? Incredulous, I snapped back. "Shut up. Just make me some food. I'm hungry." Liam, unfazed, replied, You haven't eaten? With an entitled attitude. I refused to comply, stating, "Of course not." "Why should I spend my own money when you're going to cook?" Defiant, he retorted. "I am not doing it. I'm not cooking. I'm going to bed." Fed up, I warned. "Don't you dare talk to me like that. You know if you make me angry, you'll divorce me, right?" In response, Liam callously said, "Then do it." The escalating tensions in our relationship reached a breaking point. Hungry and irritated by Liam's words and actions, I sought refuge in the bathroom, determined not to cook a meal for him. The next morning, I awoke to find him gone, and from that day forward, he never returned home. It became apparent that he was seeking refuge at his parents' house, leaving me alone. After work that day, I headed to the hospital where my mother-in-law was admitted. Despite the strain in my relationship with Liam, I chose not to burden my mother-in-law with unnecessary worries about her son. I visited her every day during her hospitalization, trying to provide some comfort. "Thank you so much, Ava. I know you and Liam are not getting along. Thank you for looking out for me in this situation," she expressed gratitude. "You don't have to apologize," I replied. Although I could imagine the struggles she faced knowing that I didn't want to have kids, I didn't reveal the full extent of the challenges in my relationship with Liam. Instead, I chose to keep silent, unsure of how to address the complex situation. Acknowledging my silence, she remarked, "A woman's intuition can be right. He is the one who made you worry about having children, so it's okay now. I was looking forward to having a grandchild too, and I inadvertently drove you into a corner by asking you over and over again." The admission from my mother-in-law underscored the complexity of the situation and the difficulty of navigating family expectations and personal choices. "I'm sorry. I couldn't live up to your expectations too," I apologized sincerely as we engaged in this difficult conversation. It was during this exchange that the daughter informed us that her treatment would take more time. Although she was about to be discharged from the hospital, she lived alone and needed assistance until her legs healed. Considering my circumstances, I found myself in a position to offer her help. Taking the matter to my company, I secured permission to work remotely for a limited period to accommodate the needs of the situation. While informing my mother-in-law about my decision, she expressed sympathy for the challenges I was about to face. Despite her concerns, I strongly reassured her. On the day of the hospital discharge, I picked up my mother-in-law and arrived at my in-laws' house. However, the atmosphere was tense, and seeing Liam made it awkward. He should have been at work at that time, and our planned evening meeting made the encounter even more uncomfortable. My mother-in-law observed me with a strange look. In an attempt to address the elephant in the room, I explained, "Actually, we had a bit of a fight with Liam, and he left the house. So, we'll be seeing each other for the first time in a while today." The revelation added to the tension, making the atmosphere even more awkward. My mother-in-law, puzzled, asked, "See each other where?" I hesitated for a moment and then replied, "This is the only place I can think of." The complexity of the situation unfolded as we navigated the challenges and discomfort associated with the strained relationships within the family. My mother-in-law's expression turned stern as I hesitated. I see. I'm sorry," she responded. "Why are you apologizing?" "Liam is your precious son. I'm sure you're uncomfortable with the fact that I blamed him for our quarrel," I offered. However, her reaction surprised me. "No, not at all. He's the kind of boy who never comes to visit me," she admitted. The revelation shocked me, and I couldn't hide my dismay. "What? He never came to visit you?" "No, never," she continued, expressing her disappointment. During the 3 weeks my mother-in-law was in the hospital, Liam never visited her once. I struggled to comprehend the neglect, and my mother-in-law seemed equally appalled. "Well, he's not that sweet boy, is he?" she remarked, the disappointment evident in her voice. Concerned, she turned to me and said, "Ava, I need you to calm down and listen to me. He doesn't have a key to this place, so he is not here." The revelation brought a sense of relief, and my mother-in-law suggested, "Let's talk about you and me first, and then you might meet a surprise." A week passed, and I found myself back in the house where I lived with Liam, packing my bags. As I busied myself with packing, I heard the front door open. Liam entered just as I was contemplating our strange relationship. "Oh, just in time. I wanted to talk to you." "I'm busy. How's Mom doing?" I inquired. "Why don't you come see her for yourself?" He responded indifferently. "Frustrated," I retorted. "You're the one taking care of her, so I don't have to go. I mean, you're the one who's supposed to be taking care of Mom." "If you don't do what I tell you to do, we're divorced," I declared, and he handed me divorce papers. "Sooner or later, this was bound to happen," I concluded, acknowledging the inevitability of the situation. "Then let's get a divorce," I declared, filling up the divorce papers in front of Liam. Unfazed, I challenged. "All right." Surprisingly, it was Liam who had initiated the divorce proceedings, yet for some reason, he appeared stunned. "You don't get it, do you? Without me, you'd be all alone by yourself," he asserted. I acknowledged, "Yeah, all alone by myself. Is that all you want to say?" Defiant, I added, "Then that's enough. I'm busy getting ready to move out." "Curious," Liam questioned. "Where are you getting ready to move out?" Mockingly, I responded, "Oh, it's obvious, isn't it? I'm going to divorce you and move out. It's perfect timing in the end." Despite his protests, I remained resolute in my decision. "Concerned about his mother?" Liam asked. "Then who will take care of Mom?" Dismissing his worries, I assured him, "Don't worry, I'll be there for your mother." His response revealed a darker motive as he accused me of being an opportunist, saying, "You are an idiot. You know you would get your inheritance by sticking up for my mom. When Mom dies, I'll be the one to get the inheritance as her only son." In a shocking turn of events, he declared, "You're not my son anymore," leaving me wide-eyed in surprise. As the tension escalated, my mother-in-law emerged from my room. "Why are you here, Mother?" Liam questioned, to which she responded, "You need nursing care, don't you?" "I was here to help Ava move out, you stupid bastard. I can move on my own with these crutches. My only child is Ava. I don't need a child who's after my inheritance even when I'm not dead yet." "You won't get anything. I'm divorcing her, so she's not entitled to the inheritance." The revelation unfolded, exposing the deep-rooted conflicts and manipulations within the family. "I'm in the process of adopting a child," I revealed, catching Liam off guard. His response was immediate and defensive. "What?" "I'm also in the process of disqualifying you from inheriting. You won't get any penny of my money." "Oh, that's what I wanted." "Kids." I knew this would disqualify me. "If I have kids, the grandchildren will be entitled to Mom's inheritance." "I told you we need kids as soon as possible," I declared, determined to secure a future for the family. "You're really hopeless. You're an idiot more than anyone can imagine. If you have a child, I'll disqualify that child from inheriting again," Liam threatened, his frustration evident. In a bold move, Liam tried to physically confront my mother-in-law. Reacting quickly, I pushed him away, took my mother-in-law by the hand, and left the house. Outside, we were confronted by a strange woman standing in front of our house. "Hey, are you his wife?" she inquired. Recognizing her as the person Liam had been having an affair with, I calmly responded, "Oh, it's you. You're the one who's having an affair with him." "Well, for now." "Did you receive the divorce papers? Please get out of this house as soon as possible." Understanding the situation, she said, "I see." It became apparent that Liam had sought refuge at this person's house. Although I was initially surprised by the woman's sudden visit, I found myself with zero emotional attachment to Liam's affair. Instead, I felt a sense of excitement, realizing that I could potentially receive alimony from him. Just as we thought we were free from the confrontation, Liam appeared, flustered, and confronted the woman he had been seeing. Accusing her, he said, "You're the one who made her wait here. So you were having an affair, huh?" "Thank you," he added sarcastically. The unfolding drama revealed the complexities of our relationships and the unexpected turns that life can take. "I'll make sure I get my alimony," I declared resolutely. Liam stood there stunned as my mother-in-law and I got into the car and drove away, leaving him behind. Our first stop was the city office, where we filed the divorce papers. Following that, I demanded alimony from both of them, as I had earlier declared. Despite their attempts to make excuses, their intense relationship was easily exposed through the social media of Liam's free-spirited girlfriend. To settle their guilt, they both transferred large sums of money to me. It became apparent that the cheating partner was after my mother-in-law's inheritance. She disappeared from my ex-husband's life as soon as she found out that he was not going to get his inheritance. It seemed they were very much alike, both driven by financial motives. Liam made numerous attempts to reconcile, visiting my parents-in-law's house many times. However, his mother consistently refused to see him. I blocked his contacts early on, preventing him from reaching me. Although he tried calling from unknown numbers a couple of times, I refused to deal with unknown numbers. Since then, my mother-in-law's leg has completely recovered, and she is doing very well with no lingering after effect. I am immensely grateful to her for suggesting the course of action that stopped the abuse. Now, several years later, I'm still enjoying my life with my mother-in-law, and I am no longer alone. Despite not being connected by blood, we have formed a close bond and created a supportive, caring environment. We live like a royal family that cares for each other. Taking a firm stance, I concluded, it's unforgivable to take your wife for granted and do whatever you want to her. His reasons for wanting to have children were terrible, and he will never find true happiness. The narrative closed with a sense of resolution, highlighting the strength found in supportive relationships and the importance of standing up against mistreatment. A few days later, having completed all the necessary formalities, I gathered my belongings and left my parents-in-law's house. I informed my mother-in-law of my departure, bowing to her in a gesture of maturity. However, she responded with a disapproving glare, criticizing me for being a subpar wife and mother since the beginning. Her disapproval intensified as she labeled me the worst mother for leaving my children. Despite her mockery, my daughter and son laughed at her remarks. My name is Ava, a 40-year-old housewife living with my husband Henry, our son Jack, and our daughter Mia. Until recently, our lives were peaceful, with the children growing up well and Henry working hard. However, a recent change occurred when my father-in-law passed away due to illness, prompting my mother-in-law to move in with us. My husband, feeling sorry for his lonely mother, unilaterally brought her to our home without consulting the rest of the family. I had always perceived my husband as a bit of a mommy's boy, but I never anticipated him unilaterally deciding to have his mother move in with us. He informed me that he had already arranged for her to stay at our place. When I hesitated, expressing concern about my mother's well-being, my husband insisted with an attitude that left me little choice. Subsequently, it turned into a challenging situation. My mother-in-law, harboring a long-standing dislike for me, seized every opportunity to criticize and pick on me. Ava, what about the seasoning? Be more careful, she would remark. Apologies would follow, but the critiques persisted. And I don't like greasy food, she would declare. Despite having children growing up fast and a husband fond of fried dishes, she demanded. Separate meals tailored to her preferences. Make sure you don't make me eat unhealthy food and shorten my life, she insisted. I explained that it would be more costly and inconvenient, but she dismissed my concerns with a blunt reference to finances. The situation, which began with my husband's decision, evolved into a daily struggle as we navigated the challenges of living under one roof with conflicting preferences and tensions. The burden of managing the household, finances, and dealing with the everyday hassles fell on me, as my husband, Henry, earned enough money. My mother-in-law, ever critical and accusing me of being spoiled, would reminisce about her own past efforts in managing house chores single-handedly when she was young. Her disapproval extended to the point of labeling me a lazy mother expressing pity for my grandchildren having to live in a home overseen by such an allegedly indolent figure. While tempted to respond and ask her to take charge if she had so much to say, I refrained. Speaking up would only incur my husband's anger, as he had a tendency to side with his mother. When I initially objected to my mother-in-law's attitude, describing her as a wife-beater, my husband's reaction was swift and harsh. He admonished me for talking back to his mother, reminding me of his role as the primary provider. Faced with this power dynamic, I contemplated divorce, but the fear of losing custody of my cherished children, my treasures, deterred me. As a housewife, I recognized the challenges of navigating a divorce and the potential impact on my ability to care for my children. Despite the hardships and the critical atmosphere in the household, my devotion to my children prevailed, keeping me from taking that drastic step. Choosing to endure the toxic environment of my marriage, I decided not to object to that ongoing mistreatment. However, instead of passively enduring it, I secretly began laying the groundwork for a divorce. Under the constant scrutiny of my mother-in-law, who spent her days at home, I discreetly applied for jobs at various companies. Fortunately, one company offered me a part-time position, leveraging my prior experience as a bank clerk. This marked my return to the corporate world after a long hiatus, and despite the accompanying responsibilities and stress, the job brought a sense of fulfillment. It proved to be a welcome distraction from the constant presence of my mother-in-law at home. However, my decision to work didn't sit well with her. She questioned why I bothered working when my husband's income was sufficient, suggesting that I might be seeking attention from other men. Her judgmental remarks reflected a total lack of understanding. Despite my husband earning well, the addition of my mother-in-law to our household increased our expenses, limiting our financial flexibility. To exacerbate matters, my mother-in-law insisted I provide her with an allowance to prevent me from spending it on other men. When I resisted and communicated the impossibility of such an arrangement, she complained to my husband. Upon his return home from work that night, my husband unleashed his anger on me once again, echoing the familiar pattern of mistreatment. No, I'm not having an affair, I vehemently denied when confronted with the baseless accusation. My mother, however, insisted otherwise, claiming that I was using my part-time salary to fund illicit affairs. Frustrated, I refuted her unfounded allegations, but my husband, swayed by his mother's words, challenged me to prove my innocence by giving her an allowance. Resisting this unreasonable demand, I found myself cornered as my mother-in-law entered the scene with a smirk. She demanded a monthly allowance of $500, citing my mother's assertions as justification. In the end, overwhelmed by the combined pressure from both of them, I reluctantly surrendered, giving away a significant portion of my hard-earned part-time income to my mother-in-law. To compound the distress, my mother-in-law took it upon herself to poison the minds of my children, portraying me as a despicable adulterer. Witnessing her smug expression as she delivered this falsehood to my kids, who were in junior high, filled me with anguish. It was an utterly unfair and damaging situation that left me feeling utterly defeated. As if matters couldn't get any worse, an unforeseen event unfolded, further exacerbating the already precarious situation. Discovering my husband's affair, despite his groundless suspicions of my own infidelity, pushed me to the brink. They say when you reach your limits, you blow everything wide open. Unwilling to spend another moment with these individuals, I promptly sought divorce papers. Confronting my husband with the divorce papers, I declared my unwillingness to stay in a house tainted by his affair. His response was callous laughter and a dismissive remark, stating that he didn't want an old woman like me in his home. It became clear that he intended to be with his adulterous partner after the divorce. Surprisingly, he readily agreed to alimony and property division without objection. When the children were asked about their preferences, they expressed their desire to remain in the house. My mother-in-law seized the opportunity to belittle me, claiming she knew I favored their father over the other woman. Completing the necessary formalities a few days later, I gathered my belongings and left my parents' house. In the living room, I informed my mother-in-law of my departure, bowing to her as a gesture of maturity. Her response was a sinister grin, followed by a sarcastic remark that lingered in the air. From the very beginning to the end, my mother-in-law never hesitated to label me as a lousy wife and mother. She went so far as to brand me a terrible mother for daring to leave my children. As she hurled these hurtful comments, my daughter and son couldn't help but laugh, seemingly echoing her sentiments. Unfazed, my response was straightforward. The children themselves had decided to stay, and I wouldn't abandon them. Despite this, my mother-in-law persisted in mocking me, suggesting that I was a pitiable woman abandoned by her own children. Retorting, I acknowledged her words but asserted that, unlike her, I was capable of handling everything at home. As she continued to belittle me, I calmly announced my departure from their house. Returning to my parents' home, I immersed myself in work. Determined to take control of my life, I requested a switch to full-time employment and underwent the necessary tests. Fortunately, I succeeded in securing a full-time job, providing me with a newfound sense of independence and stability. Now that I've left the house, I have the freedom to take my kids with me, and it seems my mother-in-law is feeling the strain. Approximately 3 months after my departure, she reached out to me for assistance. "Hey, Ava, I need your help," she pleaded. Curious, I inquired about the issue. "I have to take care of my grandson, Jack. I attend his soccer team games and even assist with a training camp during summer vacation. Additionally, I'm responsible for preparing his lunchbox for morning practices and washing his dirty uniforms daily. Mia, my granddaughter, attends cram school every day, and I have to drive her back and forth. To top it off, I'm left to manage all the housework by myself. Henry claims he's too tired from work and refuses to help." Having already divorced Henry, I felt detached from her struggles. "Well, if you're just complaining, I'll hang up now," I asserted. But she persisted. "Wait, Ava, I'm reaching out because I need your help." "Please don't say that." Firmly, I responded, "No, I won't go back, but I understand that you're in a situation you can't handle alone. I will take the children." "I cannot entrust my precious children to you," I firmly declared. "But they want to stay here," my mother-in-law countered. "That's because they wanted you to understand how hard I was working," I explained. "What?" she exclaimed in confusion. In fact, when I decided to get divorced, the first thing I did was talk to the children. Mia, my daughter, said, "But this means that grandmother and the others are just kicking you out, right, Mom?" Then my son chimed in, "I don't like that." "We know how hard you work, Mom." So, the children decided to stay home first and let their grandmother know what their mother had gone through. I was thrilled that they were on my side and made up my mind to earn enough money to bring them home. With everything unfolding according to our plan, I confidently asserted, "Yes, I'm not a full-time employee, and I'll take the kids." Her response was an exasperated, "Oh no." Taking decisive action, I engaged the services of a lawyer to pursue the transfer of custody. With the children expressing their desire to live with me, the legal process of transferring custody unfolded smoothly. Simultaneously, I exposed my husband's affair to his company, leaving his boss astounded. As a consequence, my husband was reassigned to a department where career advancement became challenging. Struggling with the financial burden, he could no longer afford the mortgage on the house he currently resides in. To add to the chaos, my mother-in-law was compelled to find employment, much to her displeasure, as my ex-husband dictated her actions. Their relationship soured and they engaged in a blame game. As they navigate the repercussions, it appears likely that they will have to vacate their current residence. Nonetheless, I've distanced myself from their affairs. In the meantime, I secured an apartment and moved in with my children. In this newfound environment, my children are blossoming into wonderful individuals. My daughter has taken up cooking responsibilities, while my son actively contributes to household chores such as laundry and cleaning. The positive and supportive atmosphere in our rented apartment signifies a fresh start for our family. My primary goal is to empower my children to pursue their dreams and aspirations in the future. To achieve this, I am committed to persevering in my work and striving to earn a living that ensures they have the opportunities and resources needed to follow their passions.
Because you constantly perceive my mom as picking on you, you feel victimized, don't you? But in reality, my mom is just trying to impart lessons on how to be a good wife. It's unfair for you to portray yourself as the victim. When I conveyed to my husband that I was enduring bullying from his mom, he responded with a surprising remark. He justified his mother's actions, explaining that her refusal to eat the food I cook and her habit of dropping hanging laundry on the ground were intended as lessons to help me become a better wife. He glanced at me, bewildered, and chuckled, making a rather absurd statement. My name is Ava, a 29-year-old office worker at a pharmaceutical company. I married my husband, who was a senior at my university 2 years ago. Unfortunately, both my parents passed away around the time of my university graduation. Being their only child and with no close relatives, I found myself alone. The attendees at their funeral were mostly acquaintances and friends, as my parents weren't close to their relatives. Shortly after, I started working at the company that hired me as a fresh graduate, and my husband and I crossed paths through a mutual friend. Perhaps he felt sorry for me, given my circumstances at the time. I found solace in my husband's support after losing my parents, and he consistently brought me to his parents' house even from the early stages of our relationship. His parents warmly welcomed me, particularly his mother, who treated me like her own daughter. This made me believe that our relationship would remain strong even after marriage. Despite my intention to continue working after having kids, the absence of available daycare options became a concern, given my parents' passing. When I shared this with my husband, he reassured me, stating that his mother had offered to care for the children. Consequently, we decided to live with his parents, with only my father-in-law being away for work. Initially, everything went smoothly, but the dynamics changed over time. As 2 years passed without me getting pregnant, my mother-in-law's attitude towards me shifted. I repeatedly heard remarks like, "Ava, as the youngest in this house, you should be responsible for all the housework." This directive was enforced every weekend, with tasks ranging from cleaning the house to doing laundry for her. Despite my proactive approach to housework, she seemed displeased. To my dismay, she intentionally dropped the laundry I hung and added leftover food or oil to clean dishes. Despite my continuous efforts to clean, she consistently finds fault and insists on rewashing the dishes. Adding to the distress, she incessantly nitpicks and complains about not seeing her grandchildren yet. This situation has already been breaking my heart, and what makes it worse is that my husband shows no understanding. Despite my numerous attempts to convey my mother-in-law's harassment and nitpicking, my husband dismisses my concerns, stating that I am overthinking and being paranoid. Perhaps since my mother-in-law wasn't openly harassing me in front of him at that time, he found it hard to believe his own mother could engage in such behavior. Regardless, his dismissive response, portraying his mother as the victim and me as the wrongdoer, made me realize I had no support in this house. Once my mother-in-law discovered my husband's disbelief, her mistreatment escalated. While previously she harassed me discreetly when my husband wasn't around, nowadays she openly curses and harasses me even in his presence. Despite recently getting pregnant and moving past the challenging morning sickness in my second trimester, I find little relief. The overall situation continues to take a toll on my well-being. During my maternity leave, I've been enduring relentless bullying from my mother-in-law, and to make matters worse, my husband not only refuses to believe me, but also seems to join in on disparaging me more and more, echoing his mother's behavior. Initially, when he learned about my pregnancy, he was genuinely happy, but now he has aligned himself with his mother, degrading me by saying things like, "You're just a woman who doesn't work and only eats and sleeps." Aware that stress isn't good for the baby, I felt helpless in this situation, with my husband being the only person I could turn to for help. Desperate, I once again shared the terrible things his mother was doing to me and implored him to stop looking down on me, for both my sake and the baby's. Choosing a weekend to address the issue, I confronted him while he was relaxing in the living room. "Honey, I need to talk to you," I said. He looked up from his phone with disinterest. I expressed my concerns about the hurtful remarks and his mother's harassment, urging him to acknowledge and intervene. However, he seemed dismissive, However, he claiming that I was taking things too seriously and that his mother's actions weren't harassment at all. Claiming that throwing away the untouched food I prepare and purposefully creating a mess in my room aren't forms of harassment is what you're telling me. My mother-in-law's actions, as per your perspective, are supposedly teaching me to become a great wife. I struggled to comprehend his words, and my vision blurred while I felt a wave of dizziness. Placing my hand on my belly involuntarily, I couldn't fathom raising my child in an environment with such distorted values. The mindset of my husband and his mother would undoubtedly negatively impact my child once born. What they consider normal is incredibly challenging for me, and I can't bear it any longer. Even my tearing cries failed to reach him, receiving only a mocking laugh in return. Already on the brink, I was pushed further when he casually suggested I leave if I hated it so much. Stunned for a moment, I quickly retorted, holding my belly, "What are you talking about? I'm pregnant right now." His response was a pout, as if saying, "So what?" He coldly laughed out loud, seemingly realizing something. "That's right. You don't have anywhere to go if you get kicked out of this house. I'm sorry, but you don't have your parents or their house, so you have no place to go." His cold laughter echoed in the distance. I clenched my lip, shooting a fierce glare at my husband, enveloped in a surge of anger. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I questioned sharply. My intense gaze seemed to pierce his heart, leaving him visibly perturbed. Declaring my departure, I announced, "I'm going back to my own home." To my surprise, my husband erupted into laughter, amused by my decision. He mockingly suggested, "If you think you can go home, you can try. You'll be sleeping outside, right? Why make it sound like going home is such a good thing?" Undeterred by his mockery, I retrieved a large travel bag from my closet, methodically packing my belongings, including clothes and essentials. My husband, oblivious to my determination, assumed I had no alternative residence besides his mother's house. Despite his belief that my departure was a mere act of stubbornness, I was resolute in my decision. As I packed, my mother-in-law intervened, echoing my husband's sentiments about following their rules. She hinted that if I disliked their house, I should leave. Unmoved, I asserted that I had no intention of returning to her house. My resolve was clear. After leaving, I would establish a new life and promptly send divorce papers. With my belongings packed and my decision made, I bid my mother-in-law and husband farewell with a quiet murmur. Determined to shield my child from these tumultuous relationships, I vowed not to let anyone see my baby. I had chosen to raise my child independently. The first year outside their house passed swiftly, marking the beginning of a new chapter in my life. I successfully welcomed my baby girl into the world, navigating the challenges of unfamiliar motherhood entirely on my own. Not once did I return to my mother-in-law's house. 2 months after departing, I initiated the divorce process by sending the papers to my husband, who reluctantly accepted, making our separation official. Simultaneously, I sought child support, but he has yet to contribute anything. It appears I may have to resort to legal avenues to address this matter. Despite the lingering emotional weight, I began to feel a sense of relief. As I looked up at the towering condominium ahead, adorned with a prominent sign declaring it a show home, I noticed others, like me, interested in exploring the available living spaces. Motivated by the desire for a more convenient lifestyle, especially considering the distance from my current residence to both my workplace and the daycare in the area, I had decided to purchase a condo before re-entering the workforce. This inclination stemmed from the aspiration to establish a stable home for myself and my child. Fortuitously, financial constraints were not an issue, and I had more than enough resources to secure a condo. Upon arriving at the reception desk on the first floor, I was informed that they would guide me through the penthouse. Following their directions, I entered the elevator, which swiftly ascended to the 40th floor. When the doors opened, I was taken aback. To my surprise, the person designated to show me the property turned out to be my ex-husband. In our married days, he had been employed at a stock company, and I found myself wondering when he had changed professions. The awkwardness between us was palpable, both of us momentarily at a loss for words. He probably never anticipated encountering me in a setting like this. His demeanor visibly betrayed a sense of unease, and his eyes wandered. Particularly noteworthy given our location on the top floor of a high-rise condo. This exclusive area is reserved for those genuinely interested in making a purchase. As my ex-husband, now playing the role of an awkward salesperson, offered a strained smile, he commenced the tour of the penthouse. While his words maintained a gentle tone, The occasional glances he shot my way betrayed a curiosity about my unexpected presence. Despite our mutual discomfort, the penthouse itself was undeniably magnificent. Situated conveniently close to my office and featuring an underground path leading directly to the daycare, this high-end condo also boasted a park on the property and a 24-hour underground supermarket. The surrounding environment left nothing to be desired, providing an ideal setting for me to single-handedly raise my child. Confident in my decision, I declared my intent to purchase the penthouse, leaving my ex-husband momentarily stunned. Anticipating the possibility of finding a suitable residence, I had come prepared to sign the contract promptly. However, to my surprise, my ex-husband failed to produce the necessary paperwork, leaving me waiting in suspense. As I poised to inquire, his lips betrayed a subtle tremor, casting a disconcerting shadow over the moment. The unfolding events seemed almost surreal. "What?" he exclaimed, his face a canvas of mixed emotions. The expression etched on his features neither conveyed anger nor jealousy, but rather an accusatory incredulity. He seemed to insinuate, "Could you have possibly caught the attention of a wealthy man, or taken up a secretive job you can't disclose to others?" Instinctively, he drew closer, prompting me to take a step back. "No way," I responded defensively, explaining that I had recently sold my parents' house and unexpectedly gained more funds than anticipated. He arched an eyebrow, evidently puzzled. "Your parents' house?" I began narrating the events of the past year, detailing how I had sought refuge at my parents' house after leaving his mother's residence, living there alone since their passing. Despite the spaciousness of the house, it became impractical for a sole occupant. I highlighted the Japanese-style garden my father had crafted, suggesting it added value to the property. Before our baby's arrival, an offer to purchase the house emerged. The prospective buyer, a renowned affluent individual, was captivated by the Japanese-style garden, but indifferent toward the house's condition. The substantial sum offered for the property led to a swift decision to sell. I acknowledged his skepticism, recognizing the age and visible signs of deterioration in the old house. I initially believed the proceeds would sustain me for only a short period. However, the buyer's affluence transformed my financial outlook. My ex-husband's incredulous question regarding the affordability of the penthouse now seemed reasonable, given the circumstances surrounding the sale of the house. The prospective buyer expressed a willingness to pay 5 times more than the average market price for the house, solely due to the captivating allure of the garden. I found it somewhat surprising, given my initial belief that my father's hobby wouldn't be highly valued in this manner. I took the opportunity to clarify that the garden was a product of my father's passion, not a professional landscaper's expertise. Repeatedly, I emphasized that since returning to the house, my efforts were limited to basic yard maintenance, such as weed removal during my exercises. I candidly admitted that the trees were not in their most aesthetically pleasing state. In response, the wealthy man insisted that he appreciated the garden's inherent qualities, asserting that the foundation was solid. Intriguingly, he preferred the prospect of customizing it to his taste through his personal gardener, rather than commissioning an entirely new design. While I struggled to comprehend his approach, considering his substantial financial means, he was resolute in his desire to acquire the property. Given the buyer's insistence and his first-hand assessment of the garden, I ultimately decided to part with the house. Surprisingly, the wealthy man, sensing a potential displacement, expressed concern for my well-being and provided additional funds for living expenses. This gesture went beyond the already generous offer, which was 5 times the market value. Consequently, I relocated to an apartment near my parents' house temporarily. The newfound financial stability allowed me to focus wholeheartedly on caring for my baby without the burden of immediate employment concerns. Upon hearing my narrative, a subtle twinkle appeared in his eyes, and a noticeable shift in his demeanor ensued. He lowered his head gently and offered a sincere apology for our past, coupled with a proposition to rekindle our relationship. His face exuded confidence, convinced that my acceptance was inevitable. However, I remained steadfast and declined the proffered hand. "I can manage on my own and live without you. I have no inclination to share my life with someone who condescends to others," I asserted firmly. In that moment, his face transformed from confidence to one painted with rage. A quick flush of red overcame him as he glared at me. "Are you saying no when I'm willing to remarry you?" he retorted, clearly agitated. The staff member, who held the contract papers, peered cautiously from behind my ex-husband. Perhaps concerned about the prolonged conversation while standing, he looked visibly uneasy. I acknowledged the staff member with a slight bow, but my ex-husband appeared oblivious to the gesture. He went on to express a narrow-minded perspective, asserting that it was inappropriate for a woman to be affluent, suggesting they should quietly attend to domestic matters behind men. The staff member's face paled at this condescending viewpoint. It seemed he intended to intervene, but my gaze alone dissuaded him. I sighed, addressing my ex-husband. "Is this the extent of your aspirations? Do you now disdain me for being successful? It would be more fitting for you to remain a lifelong servant in a husband's house." With that, I redirected my attention to the staff member who stood motionless, holding a stack of contracts and manuals. Shopping for something valuable from a company that has a stock, making such a statement, is not an acceptable practice. It was only when I vocalized my objection that my ex-husband finally turned around. The staff member I had been conversing with hurriedly approached me, bowing repeatedly and almost scattering the documents in the process. Apologetically, he acknowledged his colleague's rudeness and insisted that my ex-husband also apologize. At the insistence of the boss, my ex-husband, seemingly realizing the gravity of the situation, prostrated himself on the floor alongside his colleague, lowering his forehead and knees. They pleaded for forgiveness, urging me to stop and asking me to raise my head. Despite their remorseful display, I remained resolute, declaring my intention to explore other condominium options. The expressions on their faces shifted from remorse to despair upon hearing my decision. As they desperately attempted to salvage the situation, my ex-husband implored, "Wait, I take back everything I said, please at least sign this contract." However, I firmly declined, pointing out the inconsistency of expecting me to sign a contract after uttering offensive remarks. My ex-husband, disappointed by my response, hung his head. The outcome was apparent. He had lost because his only capability seemed to be looking down on people. It occurred to me that his boss might have harbored hopes that the deal would progress positively, given the prior marital connection. While I was the one who intervened, it was my ex-husband who allowed the situation to spiral out of control, unleashing harsh words upon the customer. Although I admired everything about the condo, from its location to the floor plan, I felt compelled to make a difficult choice. I couldn't bring myself to financially support a company with individuals who exhibited such behavior. Leaving them in their state of remorse, I exited the room, determined to explore other options. Quietly, I boarded the elevator, leaving the condo without any farewells. I resisted the urge to look back, setting my sights on new possibilities as I walked away in search of other show homes. Subsequently, the repercussions for my ex-husband went beyond losing a major contract. His verbal abuse towards a customer proved to be a significant issue. News of his demotion and salary reduction spread throughout the workplace, prompting gossip. Eventually, he was compelled to resign. In the aftermath of his departure, the job market proved unkind, leading him down a path of heavy drinking and gambling. My mother-in-law, I learned, had taken on the responsibility of caring for him. On a chance encounter at the supermarket, my son revealed that he remained jobless, residing at home and treating his mother poorly. Despite her apologies for past transgressions, my mother-in-law beseeched me to remarry him and return. However, I was quick to dismiss the notion, suggesting that she leave the house if she found the living situation undesirable. Witnessing the hopeless expression on her face brought me a sense of contentment. After securing a different condo, I located a suitable daycare facility and resumed my professional life. The proceeds from selling my parents' house and accumulated savings provided a comfortable financial cushion for single parenting. Despite the financial stability, I decided to return to work as I genuinely enjoyed my job. The company welcomed me back. And now, on the brink of a promotion, I find myself juggling the demands of work and parenting. Despite the challenges, I am living a fulfilling life.